How do you experience non-duality? Well, how to get inspired by that title. To wait for the inspiration and lies. I was just watching a video of somebody online speaking, and intuitively when I was watching them I felt like they were being fake, and that's my judgment. That might not be true, that's what appeared in my brain, but that felt really real to me. I just felt like they weren't being their true self. They were being like an image that they had crafted of themselves. And to them, I don't think they would have any knowledge of that. So they are into this subject. So they're a spiritual person. But if I pointed it out to them, and if I said it to them, they would see it as most probably an attack from me, that I was attacking them or belittling them or putting them down. And they wouldn't see that as having any genuinity. And it could be that it's completely untrue, like it could just be the production of my imagination, but it like was a bodily feeling, and it felt like it was quite a heart response, and it didn't feel like I wanted to put them down or wanted to know better or anything. It just felt like they were acting, that they were playing a mature character and trying to be somebody. And I think we all have these intuitive feelings about people, but we often don't trust ourselves because we've been talked out of what we feel or what we think, and we've been told what to feel and think. Because often if we confront someone about what we think, they deny it and they say, no, that's not true, that's your projection, or that's your judgment, or I am being honest, I am being truthful. And to them that most probably feels right. But when you've lived in a society that's constantly talking you out of what your intuition feels, and I suspect that all of our intuition is really good, you don't trust what you feel, and you often trust what the other person tells you, and you just think, oh well, I was wrong, or you're overly judgmental. Like it's more of a thing that you judge somebody because you're trying to feel better than them. So it's not actually that you're having a fair response. You feel insignificant or insecure to them, so you're like, and you have all these judgments about it. So it's like it's hard to say from here what you're doing, but I think often we have intuitive response that happens prior to our judgment of them, prior to our feeling insignificant or small to them, prior to anything. We just have a sense of whether they're being real and genuine or whether they're putting on a mask. And sometimes we don't want to know. Somebody that's an authority figure or bigger than you, like bigger, not taller, but bigger as in like they hold more power than you. Or if you're in some sort of guru tradition, you don't want to see any negativity about the guru or about the leader, because you've got particular stories invested in it and you've got a particular way of seeing it. So there's all these different reasons of why. But initially we tend to have a feeling whether someone's being genuine or not. And it's like a really instantaneous feeling before we judge them. It just feels right, their actions. And it's the same about ourselves as well. It's like those really quick responses are normally our most genuine ones. They might not be the ethical one, they might not be the nice one, but like these really quick, genuine responses. Like our body knows what it is. And I think that all our responses, all our emotions have a place, but then what we do is we make it a lot more complicated. So like some people like to have the idea that after enlightenment there is no more anger, but I see anger, not rage, not hatred, but I see anger as a super important emotion. It's a way of establishing boundaries with people. It's a way of like claiming what's yours. I don't mean in a like negative, aggressive way, I mean, or a selfish way. I mean like claiming space. And it can be a really beautiful feeling. we often judge that as something that's not allowed because we want to be seen as all giving, or we want to be seen as somebody that's never angry, or want to be seen as a particular character. And what I teach actually on the human level isn't becoming, it's about not becoming. It's not about becoming something extraordinary. It's not about becoming this person, this ideal of yourself. It's not about being moral or peaceful or kind, even though I like all those virtues. It's not about that. It's about becoming real. It's about becoming yourself. And it's that, when you look at somebody else and you can see whether they're putting on a mask and being someone, whether they're repeating something, or they're doing a habit, or they're acting out a character of themselves, or acting out who they want to be. You know how you can feel that? It's the same with yourself. When you're truly yourself on the character level, which also means that you have to be yourself on the absolute level, there has to be this knowing of who you are absolutely, to be able to be yourself on the human level. It's like you have to have that big awakening to know that who you are isn't this limitation, isn't this personality structure, in order to be totally able to accept all your dynamics and to be able to accept this personality structure. When you are identified, or when you build up this full self, you have all these ideas of what you want to be and what you want the human to be, and you have all these romantic visions. And then there's the absolute acceptance of yourself. And absolute acceptance. And it really is this, the acceptance of all your quirks and all your qualities, your good, your bad. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about positive thinking. And I think positive thinking without accepting your first emotion, so your negative thought, can be a disaster. If you try to positively think and ignore what's there, or try to pretend that you don't feel things, or pretend you don't experience things, I think what it does is it almost highlights both of them. So in your attempt to try and have this positive thought, it almost makes the negative thought bigger. It's like if you've got a monster under your bed, it's like this attempt to not look at the monster, and in not looking at it, you make it bigger. So in waking up and becoming truly yourself, there has to be an absolute acceptance of the dark and the light in the human. And we do have that. I know that maybe you're switching off now and you're like, no, I don't want this. I only want to be given good news that the human is freaking fantastic. And the human is fantastic. But we have good and bad in us, and it's not even we have good or bad. It's not even that. Good and bad is what we've made up. We just are an animal that is growing, and in growth there is sometimes destruction of our environment, of our things, of others. In growing, sometimes life can be cruel. In order for one object to grow, sometimes the other one falls to the side, and there's not always an ethical and compassionate answer. Sometimes there's difficult answers that come by, and sometimes we have weird ways of being, weird fantasies or weird ideas that are most probably passed on from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and from lots of suppression of sexuality and freedom. So we sometimes have these weird desires or weird ideas, and it's also an absolute acceptance of that. There's an acceptance that our mind can produce really bad images at certain times, that you can be sitting by the beach, everybody's chilling out and partying, and there's lots of lovely people around you, and you're having a great time, and then suddenly an airplane goes over and you have a flash of it crashing and everyone burning and dying and running away. Might be that only happens to me, but I suspect it doesn't, or it happens to all humans, partly because I work with people in sessions, and I see that that's what happens to them. So we have this complicated way of being, this human instrument is alive and real and freaking amazing and dark and light and growing, but also destroying things that's in its environment as well. And so in order to accept that human, there has to be a knowing of who you are absolutely, on the absolute level, that who you are is beyond that. And in that recognition, then you can fully accept the human. And that's really fully accepting yourself as you are. Even if there's a part of you that doesn't accept yourself. It's your nature, actually. Your essence is acceptance. Your essence is giving. Your essence is supporting all of this. So now after I've talked about that, so on the human level, you have to become fully yourself. So it means, like, if you're in relationship with people and you're sitting there having a great time on the beach, and then you have that image and someone says to you, what are you thinking about? You freaking tell them, not tell them if they're really traumatized and if it will really upset them, but you don't lie. You yourself. Like when you're hiding stuff from the outside, it's because you're not willing to accept it in the inside. You like live a life and you form a life and you carve a life where there's total honesty, and you might be thinking about yourself, but you might be thinking, but you don't understand, Lisa. Like you've got people that are more accepting around you, or it's not easy because of my family. I'm in exactly the same boat. I've had to carve out a life where I can be my max honesty, and there's still areas in my life I can be more honest, but I set it up so I surround myself with people that can accept the brutality of my honesty and the beauty of my honesty, and see the good, like the goodness in sharing sides of yourself that you normally hide. And I do it online. Like I expose myself so much online. There's certain things I don't talk about, and that's mostly out of respect for other people, and even that I would like to get rid of, but I still haven't found a way how to totally expose myself online like I do without hurting other people. Like like if I've got friends or family members and talking about them, like anything that comes up in my brain wants to be talked about. But I have this place where I want to respect people's privacy and how much they're willing to expose. It's just totally valid. It's not my right to do it. Yes. So on the absolute level, who are you on the absolute level? Isn't this wonderful? I love this part. No, I'm not done with the human level. Okay, so back to the human level. So on the human level, you want to become so thin that there's no difference between, in a way, the absolute and the relative. It's like the absolute is speaking. It's like the absolute is moving. So it gets so thin. You form this personality in time that's always seeking to be something, that's always trying to form this self-image of who it is. And then as that becomes reduced and juice, it's like nothing is acting you out. There's like what's being expressed is from emptiness, is not from a place. It's not from this person that's trying to be something. It just is as it is. And this, to me, it's like the human is this bridge, like this human form is this bridge between nothing and everything. Or you could say even consciousness is the bridge, dependent on how you look at it. But it's like it expresses the absolute, but it's nobody expressing it. So it's like when you speak, there's nothing speaking, or there's everything speaking. Like the boundaries all disappear. So there's a character that's being spoken through, but it's nobody speaking it. So even like this motivation to be truly and utterly yourself comes from nothing. So in one way you could say in every moment it's God or life or magic or mystery acting. So that illusory self gets reduced so much, and it comes through a apparent character. Like I went through a stage of saying there was nobody here, and that didn't feel comfortable because there is a character here. So that felt like a lie to me. There's some Neo-Advaita teachers that will say, there's nobody here, there's nobody inside this body. And in one way that's true, but in another way there's this character that comes and goes, that's here. And so it's like there is somebody and there isn't somebody. Yeah. Okay, so what is the absolute? That's the hard bit to talk about, because so you have an image of yourself, of who you are, this character of who you are. And I have a character, so I have this ability to think about Lisa in time, but that's not actually who you are that's expressing now. Who's actually expressing is this infinite space. It's not even space. Space is still a conceptual image. It's like this infinity, like there's nothing inside us expressing, like including you. Or you could say there's everything inside us expressing, like there's this life force that's expressing, that's empty and full simultaneously. And that character is part of the expression. It's not the experiencer. And it's beautiful, the colors of these characters. There's nothing about it that needs to be denied. But when you believe that character is you, then you're always living to this self-image of you. You're always like held to trying to be somebody else. And it's like it goes through this like dilution process. So you dilute it. So it's like there's this infinite life and wisdom expressing, and then it looks through the character, which still can be infinite, but then the character sort of like pulls everything in and becomes small and says, this is who I am, I'm sitting here, I've come from the past, I exist in time, and I'm experiencing and listening to Lisa, where there isn't anyone that's ever listened to Lisa, and this is your direct experience in this moment. And it is a contradiction, because there is someone there and isn't someone there. But your base feeling is there isn't someone there, and then the character is the expression that happens in this life, but that character isn't you. We could call it consciousness. That makes it easier to speak about, but actually consciousness is not a thing. So when you really like experiment and focus on consciousness, you realize that consciousness disappears, that there is no consciousness. But if we go with the word consciousness, because that is a nice way in order to call it something, like there is a consciousness now that's happening, and it's not limited to a person, and it's not limited inside your body. So right now you're conscious of me, you're not unconscious of me. See, it's not like I don't exist. There's a consciousness of me. So I'm appearing in your consciousness, you could say. If I wasn't appearing in your consciousness, then I wouldn't be here. Like you can't just suddenly be like, okay, I'm going to be unconscious of Lisa, I'm going to be unconscious of a chair, and there's just going to be a wall. You can't do that. Like, I'm appearing inside your consciousness, and your consciousness is all things that you're conscious of. We're not talking about unconsciousness and consciousness of dynamics. We're talking about that base sense of being alive, awake, of knowing that this is. So when you look at me, there's also a consciousness of this plant and of the wall, but it's both nameless. Like, you know, this plant's here, you can see it, but yet you don't name it, it just is. There's this color happening. And the same with my top. You're not naming my top as you look at me, but yet there's a consciousness of the color. There's a consciousness of it, of the birds, but you don't name the birds. And that consciousness is your birthright. Like when you were born, there was consciousness. You can't remember it when you were born because your brain isn't functioning to remember it. So your brain wasn't big enough to remember that period, but there was a consciousness. And this consciousness is only here. This consciousness doesn't own or have a memory, but it produces a body that has a memory. So consciousness is blank. It's like it's experiencing right now, but it doesn't have the ability to remember things in time. It produces a human with a brain that can remember things in time. So consciousness is a completely free slate. So it's being conscious of this, it's being conscious of the wall, the chair, this, your computer, my voice. It's conscious of all these things, and then the body remembers it and the body interprets it. The body is like a microphone or a video recorder, whatever way you want to call it. It's like an instrument in which it's perceiving senses. Consciousness is perceiving the senses of what's happening. And it's your birthright. You never asked for consciousness. Consciousness is always there in the background supporting everything. It's there no matter what you do. You can't get rid of consciousness. If you turn consciousness off, then there's like blackout. You can't turn consciousness off. There can just be nothing to be conscious of. But if you turned consciousness off, so if you had that idea, there would be nothing to experience. So it would just be instantly on again. Like you can only know experience, so it would just be turned back on again, and there would be experiences happening. Excuse me, my mouth gets dry. So, so every morning you wake up and it's instantly there, and then you come in and you think, oh, I've got all these things to do today and I haven't done it. And then you get so involved in the character, and suddenly or instantly you feel like you're this character again with all your problems. And then once you're involved with the character, you're always looking for rest in the character, where rest is your essence. Rest is consciousness that's right here, that's the birthright. And then the character comes in with all its problems and begins to seek to look for solutions to the problem in time, which is natural. Like, we're meant to work out problems in time, but the character's too invested in it, becomes too focused, and believes that once I complete these problems, once I work it out, I'll be able to rest. So like, you're deeply looking for rest, but it never works. You never get to the end of taxes. You never get to the end of like owning a house. Even if you buy it, you don't really own it. Like, the government's sort of giving you like a long lease on it, really. It's not really ownership. When you die, you give it to your kids, but 40% of it or something goes to the government, which I'm not saying against. I'm totally pro paying taxes. I really appreciate that my government takes taxes and makes healthcare and social security for everybody. I really appreciate that I live in a European country that has high taxes. I'm not so keen on them taxing us for war and things like that, but hopefully as our societies get better, that will be reduced and it will more be about social security. But you're never going to get to the end of it. You're never going to arrive at the time where you're like, okay, I own my husband. He's never going to cheat on me. He's never going to think about other women. He's married now. I got the, oh yeah, you can do that with that finger. That is not swearing. I got the ring on the finger. I got rings on both fingers, and they're like 100 karat gold. He's never going to cheat on me. I own him. She's never going to cheat on me because she's got the rings on. My kids are always going to love me and think I'm a wonderful parent. You're never going to arrive at that stage. You might arrive at it, but then it will change again. You're never going to have the security that you believe you'll have in time. So this mind is always seeking for relaxation in time. It's seeking for freedom in time, and it just endlessly produces problems and endlessly tries to solve it. It wakes up in the morning, it's like, and it creates this really complex identity because it believes all these things. It believes if I'm always a nice person, then I will arrive at relaxation. If I'm always kind to my husband, then he'll never leave me and I'll arrive at relaxation. If I'm always attractive, then I'll get lots of things and arrive at relaxation. So it builds up this whole identity, and the games get incredibly complex because you're looking for an impossibility and you believe you're something you're not. Who you are is what's always present. Who you're not is an idea of yourself. Trying to be an idea of yourself is like always trying to keep balls in the air. It's like impossible. Or trying to stop water from evaporating. That might be more possible. I don't know about the water evaporating. Sometimes the metaphors don't work. It just comes out, you know, and then you're like, God, you know, I know this is God or nothing speaking, but your metaphor didn't freaking work. You know, you're the all-knowing one. You should be giving, you know, so back to the consciousness stuff. So you're trying to be this illusion of yourself, and you don't even know it. Like, let me be really frank with you. You don't even know this is happening. You know, I speak with, I do sessions most weeks. I've just done this tour of India. I'm meeting hundreds and hundreds of people and talking about this subject. And let me tell you one thing. Most people really don't realize they're seeking. They might realize that they're not happy, but they cannot realize that they're seeking, because they can't really realize there's something in your brain and in your body saying, there is a problem with right now, I need to fix it. Most people are obsessed with the idea that if they get enlightened, their problems will be fixed. That is seeking. That is the illusion. This idea that you will get enlightened. Oh, yes, I think that goes back to the title. How can I experience non-duality? So this idea that you're going to arrive there, you really take that seriously. You really take the idea of non-duality seriously. And maybe it makes you feel better about yourself, about your life, about your current situation. And you're not being real. You've got to be real. If you want to find home, you've got to be really real. If your character is depressed and needs this hope of non-duality, you've got to really admit the depression first. Otherwise, it's like you're trying to use this hope of non-duality to avoid this depression. So you've got to really admit this depression. You've got to really go into the feelings and see what's at the root of it. And then once you get to the root of it, then you can start saying what it is you want to rebalance that feeling. But you've got to get to the root first. You've got to really see what your illusion is. And then you start saying what it is you want in order to rebalance that chakra area that's most probably really out of balance. But you've got to be honest and real with yourself and see what's happening. See that seeking energy that's coming up, trying to create this illusion. Like, now I'm in non-duality, and it's so funny. Like, I've done this now for 8 or 9 years. I'm now like 39. I started when I was 30. No, I'm not 39. I'm 38. So 7-8 years. I'm in my 39th year, to be precise, I think. Yes, I'm in my 39 years. Very young or very old, depending where you are on the spectrum. So if you thought I'm young, then that most probably means that you're old. If you think I'm old, then it most probably means you're young. If you don't think anything, then you're most probably the same age as me. Just to point that out for fun. I didn't mean to make anyone feel bad about their age. As a woman, I love getting older. I know I've not gone through the menopause and that part yet, but I find that as I get older, I get more and more respect from people. As a young woman, I felt like it might be my attitude as well. But when I was younger, I felt like I didn't get so much respect. Like, as you get older, people respect your opinion, and I think it's a young woman thing. People are like, yeah, she doesn't know shit, she's young. And also another thing that I love is that my intelligence grows, like my abilities grow. I get better at things because I've done them for longer and I know more things. So what else was I saying? I get so excited, I forget everything. If I'm confusing you or speaking too fast, just ride my energy and just enjoy the positive energy of it, of the talk. This is also energetic resonance. It's not just a verbal resonance or mental resonance. I forgot where I was at. I have no audience members to remind me, so I have to remind myself. So old and age and non-duality. I've forgotten. Okay, we just have to start afresh, something fresh. So, yeah, so I just was telling you, I remember now, that I do all these talks for so many years, and I see people get into this, and for the first like 2-3 years, it's a love affair, which is the same amount of time they say that falling in love lasts. They say that falling in love typically lasts like that really intense falling in love 1 or 2 years, and then new chemicals arise. And people are like super into it and they super love it. And then it's like the same pattern. And then after 2 or 3 years, it doesn't make that much difference. They begin to regret it and they begin to think it's not working for me. And they don't realize the hardcoreness of this. It's like seeing through all your illusion. So at first, your illusion is okay, this is going to save me. It's the next political savement, like savior. So it's like maybe before they were like, yeah, if I become a writer, it saves me. If I become a mother, it saves me. If I become a father, it saves me. If I become a member of the Nazi party, it saves me. If I get a dog, it saves me. If I buy a house, it saves me. If I become a millionaire, it saves me. And now it's like, okay, I've got to the final one. If I get enlightened, it will save me. And then there's the same thing, like everything else. You fall in love with it for the short period at the beginning, and then you begin to resent it because it didn't save you. And it's so much more than that. It's seeing beyond all these illusions. It is there. Like, this isn't bullshit, this subject. It's so obvious that your essence is consciousness. Your essence is free. It's just you've forgotten it by all these ideas and judgments. And I see it so often. I'm like when I speak with people on the phone, I'm maybe more cunning than I seem like I am. But like often I ask them, how long have you been into it? And if it's like prior to 2 years, I know they're still going to be very excited about it. And if it's after, then normally there's a bit more skepticism. And then normally if they say after 2 years, they start telling me about all the therapies they've done, all these different books they've read and how none of it works. And then maybe they try to convince me how, not all the time, I'm not saying everyone's like this, but I see this common theme. And really it's like, it's being so open to your experience. So if you're phoning in and booking a session with me, it's it's not about all those things. It's like what you feel now, the vulnerability of what it is now, not all what you've done or how it worked or didn't work. It's like you always just investigate now. And that might be a story that's appearing now, but you see it as that and you see, okay, so there's a story arising that I feel like, this is one common thing get a lot, is I feel like I've done so much therapy and so much work on myself and nothing works. But you see that for what it is, or what a juicy story to you. You feel like nothing works. That's a huge thing. You feel like God has let you down personally and nothing works. That is a huge freaking story, and you're believing it's true. It's not true. It is not true, baby. I'm not criticizing in any way, and if you book in a session with me, I will do this with you and point this out if that comes up, so don't feel shy, like, oh, do I do that? I realized that when I was in a retreat last time that sometimes if I talk about sessions or what people do, then the mind begins to get insecure and thinking, if I do that, do I do that? But see it for what it is. If your thought is coming up and being like, oh, I've done that, she thinks that about me, see that. That is your teacher. That's amazing. So this body-mind mechanism gets insecure about this or gets insecure about that. It must sound like I'm weeing down here with my water bottle. I love the water bottle. I love the plastic smell of it as well. My friend tells me how bad they are, but I like them. So I should just check, make sure that this is still streaming. Sometimes I'm doing these talks and it's been offline for like not 3 hours, half an hour. I'm so dramatic. And I haven't realized I've been chatting to myself. Yeah, da, 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 da. So, my fellow friends, and I still do this, like I still, on the human level, I'm always trying to be real to myself about what's going on. Like my human has difficult things arising. You know, I'm just trying to be as real as I can be. If it's a difficult thought pattern or not a difficult thought pattern, you're always going to have thought patterns. It's that it's not you. There is something beyond that that's right here. And it's when you believe that to be true and that you get sucked into that thought pattern. That's who I am. I'm guilty. I'm bad. They're guilty. They're bad. It's not true. You are this right here, right now, a radical aliveness. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't trust instinct. I used to think that meant ignoring instinct or ignoring what I feel or what I think. It's not that either. Like if someone's being an asshole and then you confront them on that and they say, that's a story. It's not that as well. You're allowed to have these stories of relationships. So I used to think I couldn't confront anyone. If I ever thought anything bad about anyone, I couldn't confront them. It was all my projection. Yes, it's your projection and it's not true, but you're still allowed to feel that. Like, so there's a deep knowing when I go to someone and say something, even if I'm like sometimes if I know the person well, I'll act it out like, you done this, did this. But there's a deep knowing it's not true. Of course it's not true. It's only a thought. It's only an idea coming up, but it's how this body feels, and you've got to honor what this body feels as well. I think as a woman, you know, in this subject, I think let's just be honest. I don't like to say this because I never like to talk badly about people, but I think I've most probably said this lots of times, and I always think that, but I've most probably spoken badly about people many times. But I used to, you know, be with these male teachers that I think are just set up differently from females, and they always used to try to talk me out of having my feelings. Yeah, it's just projection. And yes, it is just projection, but it's also your feeling. It's like you've got to own it, but also see that it's just a feeling. It doesn't mean it's reality. It doesn't mean it's real, but it's real to you in that moment. It's complex, but not as well. Okay.